6 luxury SUVs share the worst reliability ratings in the premium segment, and yet North American sales jumped 27% last year. We're breaking down every Land Rover you can buy in 2025, what makes each one different, and why people keep buying them despite everything you're about to hear. The numbers that define this brand tell a story that shouldn't make sense. J.D. Power's 2025 Vehicle Dependability Study recorded 270 problems per 100 Land Rovers compared to an industry average of 202, ranking them 5th from the bottom among all brands. Consumer Reports can't even formally rank them because not enough of their members own recent Land Rovers to generate statistically valid data, and What Car's 2025 survey placed them 26th out of 30 brands. Their order book at the end of the fiscal year held 133,000 vehicles anyway. Here's what you're actually getting when you ignore those reliability scores. Discovery Sport opens the lineup at $48,900 as Land Rover's value entry, a compact 3-row SUV powered by a 246 horsepower turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 269 pound-feet of torque and runs 0 to 60 in about 7.3 seconds while returning 19 city and 23 highway. That optional third row separates it from the BMW X3 and Mercedes GLC it competes against, since those rivals don't offer one. And hill launch assist with hill descent control comes standard along with a 4,409 pound towing capacity. Active families that want genuine off-road capability but can't stretch to the larger Discovery make up the buyer base, which explains why this sits as one of Land Rover's weakest sellers at around 18,000 units globally, about 5% of total brand volume. Range Rover Evoque sits one step up at $49,900 as the entry Range Rover, a compact luxury SUV running that same 246 horsepower mild hybrid 4-cylinder with 8.3 inches of ground clearance. Terrain Response 2 and All-Terrain Progress Control earn it Kelley Blue Book's title of easily the best off-roader in the subcompact luxury class, but fuel economy tells a different story at 20 city, 27 highway, and 22 combined, making it the worst in class, while BMW X1, Audi Q3, and Mercedes GLA all hit 25 to 28 combined. Victoria Beckham collaborated on the development, which wasn't aimed at spreadsheet buyers, but at younger, more urban, more female-skewed customers seeking what Land Rover called an emotional connection. Resale performance actually leads the Range Rover family after the Defender, with 46.4% 5-year retention, according to IC Cars. Discovery arrives at $60,200 as the mid-size 3-row with standard 7-seat configuration, offering either a 296 horsepower 4-cylinder or a 355 horsepower turbocharged inline-6 with mild hybrid, both paired to an 8-speed automatic and permanent 4-wheel drive. Maximum ground clearance reaches 11 inches, and the 8,201 pound towing capacity leads its class. Affluent families that need 3 real rows and off-road capability but find the Range Rover too flashy or too expensive make up the target buyer, and Kelley Blue Book reviews reflect unusual positivity, with 75% giving it 5 out of 5 stars and 80% recommending it. Sales reached around 46,000 retail units globally last year. $61,500 gets you into the Range Rover Velar, positioned as the style pick with a choice between a 247 horsepower 4-cylinder or a 395 horsepower turbocharged inline-6 that includes mild hybrid and an electric supercharger, and that 6 runs 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. Ground clearance climbs to 9.9 inches with the optional air suspension, though this stands as the least serious off-roader in the family since it lacks a low-range transfer case and locking differential. Land Rover originally positioned it to compete with the Porsche Macan, filling what they called the white space between the Evoque and the Sport for design-driven urban professionals, and that positioning created the most cannibalized model in the lineup, as its share of Land Rover global volume dropped from 17% back in fiscal year 2019 down to about 8% now. Range Rover Sport carries the volume at $83,700 starting price. though you can option it all the way to $182,325 for the SV Edition too. Powertrains span from a 355 horsepower inline-six up to a 626 horsepower twin-turbo V8 that hits 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds and tops out at 180 miles per hour, with towing capacity reaching 7,716 pounds. This is the classic Chelsea tractor that celebrities and image-conscious professionals choose, consciously biased toward dynamic on-road performance rather than pure off-road work. And the depreciation hits brutally hard, as the 2021 Sport lost about 64% of its value in 5 years, while the 2022 Sport dropped 54% in just 3 years. Land Rover sold 79,862 of these globally last year anyway, up almost 20% year-over-year. Flagship Range Rover tops the lineup with a base price of $107,900 for the short wheelbase SE, scaling all the way to $234,000 for the long wheelbase P615 SV, with its twin-turbo V8 making 606 horsepower. That long wheelbase version adds 7 inches of length and nearly 8 inches of rear legroom for a total of 48 inches, and underneath sits 11 plus inches of ground clearance, 2 locking differentials and 5 terrain modes, including wade for water crossings in genuinely class-leading capability that almost nobody uses. Land Rover has historically cited a median US household income for Range Rover buyers of around $300,000, and the appeal stretches across celebrities, royalty including the British royal family since the 1950s, and self-made professionals simultaneously. What car scored the current Range Rover at 94.6% in their 2025 reliability survey, which sounds impressive until you remember Land Rover as a brand still finished 26th out of 30. The question of why they keep buying comes down to 3 things. Status and design remain unmatched, as few vehicles command attention on sight the way a Range Rover does, and no real substitute exists for this combination of capability and luxury, except maybe the Mercedes G-Wagon, which costs more. Leasing allows many buyers to avoid the worst depreciation years while using the factory warranty to absorb reliability problems. Owner experience beats the spec sheet every time, as even owners who complain about reliability often buy another. One more thing shapes the 2025 story. JLR's IT systems came under attack beginning August 31st last year. Production stopped September 1st and remained halted for 5 weeks, and the UK Cyber Monitoring Centre classified it a Category 3 systemic event with estimated UK-wide damage at £1.9 billion, affecting over 5,000 organisations. The technical committee chair called it by some distance the single most financially damaging cyber event to ever hit the UK. And Range Rover and Range Rover Sport production remains constrained into 2026. 6 SUVs spanning $49,000 to $234,000, objectively unreliable, expensive to own, brutal on resale, and selling better than ever. Sometimes the spreadsheet doesn't win,